links are boring. Who wants to click on a link to go to another website? Hey, Matt.
Hey, Mike.
Shall we do the podcast?
Okay.
Woohoo! Welcome to Hacking the Grepson, the software development podcast featuring me, Mike, and that other guy, Matt.
Matt.
Yep, that's Matt, the
He's
guy who
all
said
right.
Matt. He's Matt. So I don't really know what to talk about. So what you been doing lately? What you working on? What you interested in the development, programming, moving my head back and forth in a fancy way? Yeah, like, What's going on at the Roxbury?
That's exactly what it was reminding me of. That's a good question.
Right off the top.
I have, what have I been playing around with lately? I've been playing around a lot with AI stuff. I think we touched on that a little bit a few episodes back.
Yeah, you were super into AI now. Like you did such a, I don't know if it was a 180, but it was definitely like an obtuse.
It was like
angle.
a 90.
Okay, it was at least a right angle.
I always like to revisit my assumptions about things.
That's good. That's
especially as things change, and check myself, right? So I don't get
before
stuck
you wreck
in
yourself.
Yeah, exactly. I'm getting older, and
AI's going to take over. You might as well.
I've seen people get stuck in their beliefs, even though time has moved on and moved past them, and I don't want to be that person. So
Okay.
I've been playing around with AI a lot. It started off with me just trying to figure out how to make ChatGPT useful. I think we talked about that a bit. And I got a pretty good flow with my ChatGPT now.
Yeah, you showed me. You've got quite the setup. It's
Yeah. I spent a whole weekend training ChatGPT and how I want to be communicated with. And that was very effective. And I have an entire system where, like, if I create a folder, I'll put a meta file in there, like a file called meta. And I've told ChatGPT that if I do that meta file is changing the rules as they are right now for the overall thing. It's when I want to talk about, like, I have a whole one dedicated to, we bought that land and I want to build a house on it. That's a huge process and there's a lot of things to think about. And so I have multiple chats in that, but I have one meta one that's like, okay, here's what's going on. Here's what I'm doing. Here's my goal. Here's this, right? So that when I say, hey, I'm thinking about this thing, it has context and knows what I'm thinking. And if I'm like, please don't bring up the cost because I don't want to think about it. I haven't done that, but I probably should. So that's been good. I'm going to come back to this in a sec. But I had ChatGPT help me, and it's still helping me because I've taken a bit of a break from it, help me set up an entire development framework to make it so that I could do coding more effectively from my iPad. So I'm going to come back to that because it's more interesting than the next thing I'm going to say, but I want to mention it while we're talking about AI, which is I recently installed Klein Code on my into VS Code, and I'm finding it much better than the GitHub Copilot, which was the other area of AI I've played around with. That was actually the first one. It's like GitHub Copilot. I'm like, fine, let me try it. And it's good. Way better than IntelliSense most of the time. I love when Copilot will just, like, it'll autocomplete something that I was going to write, like an entire function sometimes. I'm like, fantastic. Love it. The comments it goes to add save me a bunch of time. Because, like, sometimes I'll just hit enter while I'm thinking, or, like, I'll start writing a thing and I'm like, and I'll move back up and it's like, it'll say what I'm trying to do. And I'm like, yeah, now it's commented. Awesome. Today I used Klein. Klein is a more, I'm going to say, holistic version of the Copilot. In that Copilot is really, it can do stuff across your entire workspace, like all the files, but it doesn't do it real well. It does a good job in a single file. If I'm like, go do this thing, it just does it, right?
Yeah.
Autocomplete, I can ask questions. What's this thing doing? Right? Very easily. Copilot's great for that. Klein does that on a bigger level. Similar, I think you've probably heard of Claude Code. There's also Rue and some other things. They're all aiming to kind of do the same thing. And Klein and Claude, I don't know if there's a relation. They both aim to, if you're going to do vibe coding, which I hate the term for, and I am against the general practice, you're going to use something like that. Like, hey, write me a program that does X, right? Or I did a dumb thing in it today. I have very little documentation. One of the services I use at work, I use Klein to help me generate the API documents for it. So it went through my entire code base. It pulled things together. It didn't do it perfectly, but it did all the stuff that would stop me from starting. Mm-hmm. And that's the important part I've learned for me when I'm working on something is get started.
Yeah.
So I'm using it a lot for that. And I wish I'd been using Klein when I started working on this next thing, which is the thing I mentioned earlier, which is I use ChatGPT to help me figure out how to do this, so I don't own my own computer right now. I find it unnecessary because I always have a work laptop and I'm not working on anything that work would care about. A lot of the times when I get ideas in my head for what kind of program I want to write, I'm in bed and I don't bring my laptop to bed. It's basically just a movable desktop for me. I can take it back. I can take it when I go on trips. I don't really move it around the house all that much. So it's like, okay, how can I code on my iPad? So I asked ChatGPT, I'm like, help me set up a development sandbox that can let me, basically at the click of a button, which we haven't gotten to yet, but basically at the click of a button, set up a new project. And that new project should have a front end, it should have a back end. I want it to, because it's what I'm now familiar with from doing it all the time at work. I want it to be in TypeScript on both front and back end. We're going to use Node over there. We're going to use this over here. And I need to be able to do everything from my iPad, including coding. I'd really like a VS Code style IDE while I'm doing it. How can I do that? Right? And it did a pretty good job helping me put that together. It even wrote quite a bit of the code for me in areas of things that I don't know well, which was great. It was like having a little intern again. That's how I treat AI. It's my intern. So what I end up with, where I am right now, is I have my dev sandbox project. And when I create a new project, it will create all those things. And then it uses a bunch of stuff as kind of like hosting, right? So we got to put the code somewhere. I don't have it hosted on my own server. I would like to get to that point, but I'm not there yet. The code itself is in GitHub because that's where I want it. We're using something called code spaces within GitHub.
I've heard of that.
That is basically, the best way I can describe it is a remote desktop into VS Code, right? Can spin up that. So it creates the workspace as part of what we're doing. And then when I want to go work, I log into that. And I start up the workspace and I write some code and it can execute there. And it can also push to my CI system, et cetera. So I've got, let's see, we've got GitHub Codespace is the dev environment. I've got, I think it's pronounced Vitae, but it's pronounced Vitae, but it's spelled Vite.
Yeah, I thought it was just Vite, but okay.
I might be wrong too. I don't know. It should be Vite. Vite plus React plus TypeScript is my front end. For my infrastructure platform, I'm using a thing called Render. For my infrastructure as code, I'm using Pulumi. I'd never heard of most of these things until I started. Pulumi plus TypeScript, or the TypeScript version of Pulumi, and then some dynamic providers. For my CI/CD, I've got, it's a bit manual still right now, but that's going to be changed. But it goes through Pulumi to do the CI/CD. I've got a CLI right now to actually make the new project, which just asks me a couple questions, and it spins all this stuff up. All my projects run in their own container. They have their own repos. And let's see, anything else? No, that's pretty much, that's the important parts of that. So when I create it, right now I have my first dev project one is called Hello World because I'm me.
Obviously.
That's what I do. So I had it build it, and then I also created a new chat in ChatGPT to talk about what I want to do in there. So I'm like, help me get this started. And as soon as I did that, I stopped working on anything for several weeks because I got to my goal of being able to create the project, and then I stopped.
Yeah.
But those things are kind of what I'm working on right now. What about you? What's going on with you? Or do you have any questions about that before we move on to you?
I had some basic, more of like a philosophical question than the technical. Like, since you've been using AI so much, when you ask Copilot or when you're asking Klein to, kind of scaffold all this kind of stuff, do you feel, adrift sounds a little too much, but like, do you feel like there's something significant missing if you were to code without any of that stuff now? Like, if you just stopped using it cold turkey, would that be weird?
Depends on what I'm doing. For the like my day-to-day job stuff, don't use it beyond like the autocomplete stuff. Today, generating that document, the whole Markdown framework for my API documents, that's like the first time I've done anything like that for work. I could take or leave that. It's just convenient right now. Like I said, it's like having an intern. If my intern left, I can still do all this stuff myself. Where I would find it very difficult is doing something like the dev sandbox that I'm building. Because I don't know most of those technologies, and honestly, I don't have the time to go learn whatever the heck Vite is, right? I don't have time to go figure all that stuff out. That's not the part of coding I'm interested in. I want to write the fun part. So scaffolding, it's just like, if you go into Ruby on Rails and do the start up a new project.
Thing. Yeah.
If you didn't have that, Ruby on Rails would not be nearly as powerful as it is, in my opinion, because no one would start. Yeah. Because it's that the cost to start, whatever there's an expression for that, and I can't think of it.
Yeah. No, I know. I mean, I get it, and I like
barrier to entry.
Yeah, the barrier to entry. I'm sure we talked about this in one of our AI episodes recently, where it's just so many things are just so hard to go from zero to doing anything, and AI really can be helpful for that. I mean, I haven't jumped on that bandwagon like you have yet. I mean, I'm sure it's coming. I've been reading a lot of like dystopian AI stuff, so maybe that's what's keeping me away, or just
that's what kept me away for a long time.
Yeah,
I read a lot of that fiction.
It's really interesting to think about, the perhaps disastrous future potential. But
exactly, there's also the ecological concerns, right? Yeah. So I don't like to heavily use it because I feel bad about destroying my daughter's future.
Yeah,
by doing
as
that.
You should.
I can only assume it's going to get better at some point, but it's not there right now.
Yeah. Well, speaking of Ruby on Rails, I mean, all that's really cool. I'm curious to see in person at some point the whole iPad, because I iPad DevBox thing, because I don't currently have an iPad. I'm pretty sure my daughter inherited whatever one I had at some point, and I just never got another one. And so I've basically just done computer and phone. But I have been kind of wanting that middle ground again and using it for development, because I did do one time, I got super into kind of retro development using like a basic-esque programming language to make a game. I think I talked about it on an episode at some point. And so I could essentially write BASIC on my phone in this program, which, I don't know, coding, touch type coding was And so that's why I'm kind of curious how productive you really are actually typing on an iPad.
Not as much as I would like to be, but it's possible. And that's the important
Well,
part.
that's why the AI is good, because it does all that boring, tedious stuff.
I don't have that integration on my iPad though. So I can't be like, hey, go vibe code this thing for me.
Well, at some point it's coming, I think.
Probably. But I just want to get to the point where I can write stuff myself when I have an idea.
Yeah, no, that's very cool. But speaking of Ruby on Rails, the things that I've been up to lately, the most recent thing is that I was, you remember Mastodon? Remember how that's still a thing and how it never took off?
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
You mean the failed version of Blue Sky?
Yes, exactly. I still use it sparingly because for the same reason why you don't really use it anymore is that nobody I know uses it, and that's fine. But what something did come up recently is I was trying to share something on it, and in general, if you share a link on Mastodon, it's pretty smart about kind of displaying it properly. If it's just like a normal web link, it just puts the link. But if it goes to something like a YouTube video or a Bandcamp song or whatever, it kind of is smart and knows to make like an interactive widget, so you can play with it on Mastodon without having to go to the other site.
That's fun.
Yeah. I mean, that's pretty normal in most social medias now, that they have like an embedded interactive version of the link rather than just a link, because links are boring. Who wants to click on a link to go to another website? But one thing it doesn't do, and there's actually a bug in there for this, is that it will not take an arbitrary audio file that you link to and make a player out of it, despite the fact that there is a perfectly good audio and video element as part of HTML, as a part of the spec for years, but it doesn't do that. And there's a bug in there, and I found it in their GitHub, and I'm like, maybe it's finally time to do something with Mastodon besides, sporadically post and sporadically read it. And so I got into Mastodon development. And Mastodon
Really?
is a Ruby on Rails app. So it's another chance for me to relearn Ruby on Rails because I never do it consistently. So I always have to think about it. I did it years ago, and then I did it for that Advent of Code site to keep track of our most recent one. And so this is the next one. And Mastodon is a huge application with a lot of moving parts. Speaking of all those parts that you were using to do the DevBox thing. But thankfully, they have a nice Docker that you can just download, and you push the Docker up and you run some commands, and bam, you have a working local Mastodon instance that you can mess with, which is super awesome. Kudos to them for doing that, because I know that is not easy. And the fact that it worked with a few hiccups, mainly just, trying to get some things set up on my system is good. So I haven't done any actual changes yet. Basically, I've just been kind of doing a deep dive on how Mastodon works behind the scenes, because I've never really looked at the source code before. So that's kind of my development. Let's see how this works, and let's see how they do things. And it's amazing when you think about the technology that goes behind someone posting a status on a website, and all the things that, if it gets popular enough, how you have to deal with displaying it and making sure that it, that the server doesn't get overloaded if too many people are doing it. It's just, you think it would be super simple, but I think most of the stuff that goes behind just posting a status on a social media platform is kind of the back end engineering of how the load balancing and the database and the controller and the model and the view and all that kind of stuff goes. So that's what I'm learning right now.
There's a reason that site reliability engineers exist.
Yeah.
Right. They're the ones who have to deal with the issues of scale. Massive scale is really hard to deal with. It's easy-ish, It's easy enough to spin up a server and a client and do a thing. When you have 1 million people hitting it several times an hour, it's a very different problem. And if it's one of the really big companies like Google or whatever, it goes wild. So I can only imagine how big it is for Mastodon, because they have a fairly substantial user base. Just no one I know except for you.
Yeah, well, and also it's an open source project that you can host yourself, like I do. I mean, most people I think that use Mastodon probably just use an instance that already exists, and they just join, so they don't have to deal with any of the setup. But being me, I'm like, no, I want to run this on my own server and see how it works. And it's a fairly hefty program with multiple services running and lots of stuff behind the scenes. So I'm just getting into that. I'm dipping my toes in it. The other thing there's two other things I wanted to shout out. One thing that I do want to work on that I haven't started yet is, so I'm a guitarist, in case I haven't mentioned that. I've been playing guitar for 30 years, and I still...
Mike likes music a little bit.
A little bit. I still really enjoy, even if I'm not thinking about the hardcore musical theory of something that I'm playing or writing, I really like sometimes to just make a weird chord on the guitar. And I don't know the names of all the chords in my head. And especially when I'm writing something in Logic, one thing you can put in Logic when you're making a composition is there's a chord track at the top. So you can actually input chords because, not only if you were going to print it out for a lead
A7
sheet.
major Sus 4 or whatever.
Yeah.
Ridiculous names.
If you were going to print it out for someone to read, because they're going to perform it live or something, that's good. But also you can just use it to tell Logic's. It has 3 of them now. It has a drummer, it has a keyboardist, and it has a bassist, and they're all an algorithmic virtual instrument. So basically,
that's almost a whole band.
Yeah. They don't have a guitarist yet. They don't have a guitarist yet, but I'm sure it's coming. But if you put the chords there and then you add one of those virtual instruments and then you hit play, it will read the chords and it will play. If it's the keyboard, it will play chords, and it can play different complexity or intensity. Use more octaves, et cetera, et cetera. But you just kind of feed it that information, and then it knows how to kind of improvise over those chords. And so I don't always know all of them, and sometimes I'm working on something, I'm like, okay, well, I need to tell Logic how to do that. So you go to one of the many, many websites where you can input on a guitar staff all of the, guitar tab, all the notes, and it will tell you what kind of chord that is. Or you can give it a chord like, oh, I saw this G minor 7, sharp ninth or something, and I don't know how to play that on a guitar. So it will tell you, here's how you play that on the guitar using guitar tablature. And somehow in my life as a developer, I have never tried to make one of these sites because most of them are, often ad written or maybe not written like I would make them, that usual thing where like it's good enough for the 5 seconds I need it. But it'd be cool to make my own because I love just making things to see if I can make them, even if no one else uses them. Insert, 500 projects that I've done already. So I'm gonna.
Me too. But you actually. I also feel that way. But you actually do them. I have the ideas. I write them down, and then I never do anything with them.
I do them because I have to. It's like a song. I kind of have to get it out of my head. I have to just get it out so it doesn't ruminate, and that helps. So that's a project that I'm going to be working on over the next year or two. And then one of the shout out I just wanted to put out there is a game that I've been playing. You may have heard of The Witness. Well, The Witness is this puzzle game where you start at a dot and you follow a line until the end, and it just gets more and more complicated. I played that game years ago. It's awesome. Go play that game if you haven't. But if you have played it and you just want a little 5-minute break, someone made this thing called Hall of the Mountain K.ing because that music track is featured in the game, and it has all the puzzles, but just in a row. You just do them on a web page. You get it done, it gives you the next one, So you don't have to boot up the game or own it or travel in a 3D space to get to the next puzzle. You can just get the puzzles. And if you like those puzzles, it's a fun way to kind of revisit the game. And it totally gets my programmer brain going. I'll do a few and then get back to work, and then do a few and get back to work. And super fun.
It's pretty fun. I tried out a few, and then I realized like, oh, hey, I'm not good at these.
It's definitely it's not for everybody, but I enjoyed it. And I love little things like that I can just throw in a tab and pin it. And just every once in a while, take a break and come back and just kind of noodle with it for a second. It gets you out of your head and thinking about something else. So, yeah, that's what I'm working on. And Matt, you told me what you were working on. So I think we accomplished the goal of this podcast episode.
Goal accomplished.
Goal accomplished. All right. Well, thank you for listening to this episode of Hacking the Grepson. If you want to hear more, you can go to hackingthegrepson.com. And we put out an episode every other week on Wednesday. Until the next time we talk at you, we now return you to your regularly scheduled lives already in progress.